Hello students, in this lecture we will learn about the British School of Diffusionism. In the earlier lecture, we had already learned about diffusionism as a concept. And also learned that diffusionism can be seen in three perspectives as per the British School of Diffusion, German School of Diffusion, and American School of Diffusion. This segregation of different schools is basically on the perspective of philosophers related to the particular school of thought. For example, G.E. Smith, W.H. Perry, and W.H.R. Rivers are three philosophers related to the British School of Diffusion. So they have a different perspective of seeing how cultural diffusionism works in the world. Similarly, for German School of Diffusion and similarly the American School of Diffusion. British School of Diffusion is known as Pan-Egyptian School. This school considered Egypt as a cradle of culture. It is from this center of culture that cultural traits have diffused and migrated to rest parts of the world. So we see that how British School of Diffusionism considers Egypt as the center of culture, and all the rest of cultures in the world has diffused from this cultural center. Now we come on to the philosopher's thought of on this school. Grafton Elliot Smith, in his famous book entitled The Origin of Civilization, which was published in 1928, he emphasized upon Egypt as the origin of civilizations. Smith was aware that many primitive and non-literate societies were without pyramids or monuments that we often see and often hear of Egypt, and indicating that they have no influence of Egypt. He called all people outside the civilization as natural man. He described their cultures or collection of negative traits because there was no clothing, housing, ornaments, or government, burials, etc. etc. So they said that he was of the view that all other people who are not following these, who do not have this influence of Egyptian civilization, are people outside the civilization, and they are the natural man. Because he was of the view that civilized man is older than civilization. Moving forward to the next philosopher, William James Perry. W.J. Perry was a devout supporter of Elliot Smith's scheme of diffusion of culture trait. He did not make any specific theoretical contribution to this theory of scheme of diffusion, but he blindly supported Smith's theory that Egypt was the only cultural cradle in the world. For this, Perry and Smith both are often referred to as Egyptologists, wherein they have this belief that Egypt is is supposed to be the center of all cultural traits, and it is the place where all cultural traits and originated. This is the origin of civilizations. Perry was involved in archaeological excavations in Cairo, where he saw remains of the Sun Temple. Perry collected information on beliefs and attitudes related to sun worship among the people of Cairo. He analyzed the data and published them in the form of a book, The Children of the Sun. In his book, he called Egyptians as the children of the sun because only sun god was regarded as the universal deity. Such idea related to the sun god diffused to other parts of the world from Egypt, and hence he emphasized on the part that Egypt is the origin, is the center wherein the worship of sun god uh, was originally done, and hence it diffused to other parts of the world. Perry was against psychic unity and independent inventions of evolutionists. He was of the opinion that similarities are caused due to diffusion of cultural traits, and Egypt was the ancient center of civilization. Moving forward to the next philosopher, William H.R. Rivers. William H.R. Revell was a medical doctor of Britain. He was also a member of famous Torres Strait expedition in 1898. Students must take note that you have to learn these expeditions very promptly, because this can be a very important probable question which is often asked in the examination and in MCQ types. The year can be asked, or you can be asked to rearrange the important expeditions chronologically. You can be asked which of the following philosophers or anthropologists went on for this expedition, were a part of this expedition. So you must take note that W.H.R. Revels, who was a British diffusionist, was a part of Torres Strait expedition, which was conducted in 1898. This was the first interdisciplinary anthropological expedition meant to cover all sides of primitive life by trained investigators. His famous article entitled "A Genealogical Method of Collecting Social and Vital Statistics" was published in 1900. He recorded genealogical and kinship terms, observing specific behavior patterns associated with them, including rights, duties, privileges, status, and roles. Hence, William H.R. Rivers contributed very importantly to the genealogical method of studying kinship systems. In 1904, W.H.R. Rivers came to India to study the polyandrous Todas of Nilgiri Hills. These Todas are a tribe in the Nilgiri Hills. Now here again is a probable MCQ question, as in which anthropologist studied this tribe, the Toda tribe, can be asked. Or it can be asked which of the following tribe is polyandrous. So you should know that Toda tribe is polyandrous. So you should learn this very carefully, that Toda tribe was studied by Rivers, and he wrote a book on them, which was Monograph on Toda. It is considered as a classic monograph ever presented to the world on the study of an Indian tribe. Okay. In 1907, he wrote an important paper, Origin of Classificatory Kinship of Relationships, in honor of E.B. Taylor. The paper was later incorporated in his own book, Social Organization, in 1914. The theory of degeneration and uninventiveness became major tool of explanation in this book, the History of Melanesian Society, published in 1914. So here again comes a probable MCQ question, as in who studied the Melanesian Society. So you should know that Melanesian Society was studied by Rivers, and he wrote a book on them in 1914. You can also be asked in the examination to rearrange the books written by a particular anthropologist in chronology. So Toda tribe was studied first, or the Melanesian society was studied first. You must know. You should read, give a thorough reading to these slides. Rivers opined that the similarities in culture could be explained in better way by taking into consideration the imitation and migration. He strongly supported the theory of uninventiveness put forward by his contemporaries. Other famous books by Rivers: Kinship and Social Organization, which was written in 1914, Instinct and Unconsciousness, written in 1920, History and Ethnology, written in 1922, Conflict and Dream, written in 1923. Weakness of British School of Diffusion. The British diffusionist schools thought uninventiveness as rare. It was its greatest weakness. Though every culture group borrows more than it invents, it does not mean that inventions are made only once and at a particular place. Second, they were so biased at their scheme that they did not consider places other than Egypt as the center of cultural trade. They took into account only simple forms of diffusion, that is, diffusion of culture traits, but they never emphasized upon the diffusion of culture complex. Let's do some multiple choice questions on this topic. Question 1. The book The Children of the Sun, published in 1923, was published by option A. W.H.R. Option B. Grafton Elliott Smith. Option C. William H. Rivers. Option D. None of these. The correct answer for this question is option A. W.H.R. Question 2. The Toda tribe of India was studied by option A. W.H.R. Option B. W.H.R. Rivers. Option C. R.R. Marriott. And option D. Francois. The correct answer for this question is W.H.R. Rivers. Question 3. Which of the following do not belong to the British diffusionist school? Option A. G. E. Smith. Option B. W.H.R. Option C. A. L. Kroeber. And option D. W.H.R. Rivers. The correct answer for this question is option C. A. L. Kroeber. Question 4. Melanesian society was studied by option A. F. Rudsell, option B. W.H.R. Rivers, option C. G. E. Smith, option D. W.H.R. The correct answer for this question is W.H.R. Rivers, option B. So, option W.H.R. Rivers studied the Melanesian society, and he also wrote a book on them, A History of Melanesian Society. Question 5. The famous Torres Strait expedition was undertaken in which year? Option A 1900, option B 1898, option C 1914, option D 1890. The correct answer for this question is option B 1898. With this, we come to an end to this lecture of British School of Diffusionism. We studied the diffusionist perspective of three philosophers, G. E. Smith, W.H.R., W.H.R. Rivers, and we also studied the weaknesses that the British School of Diffusionism has. Thank you.